Hey everybody, welcome back to another reasonable price prediction series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Now today we're looking at Uniswap, and a quick video today just taking a quick look at a few simple indicators. For example, this Fibonacci that we've set from the all-time high of Uniswap of about $48, close to $50, and down to this local low that we've seen in this bull market of about $4. Note this isn't the all-time low for Uniswap, as after a few weeks of it launching we came down to a low of $2.40, but you could even argue the sort of launch price of about 30 cents is the low. Hell, this even wicks down to 15 cents. I wouldn't count that though. I would probably take this as Uniswap's low. So anyway, I'm measuring from $4 because that's where we went this cycle. And as you can see, Uniswap has been below this lower Fibonacci retracement level for the good part of 2 years. We broke down in early January of 2022, and we've been below ever since. Now we have come close to breaking back up in the last few months. Back in March time, Uniswap made a good effort to break below, and while we did get a wick above, we ultimately got rejected and came back down to around the $6-7 level, which was a 50% drop. Note that this first Fibonacci retracement level is about $14.50, excuse me. So it was a pretty severe drop that we saw. And then from this low, we made another move to the upside, but again, it wasn't as strong. And we also seem to have been rejected again at a lower level of about $11. Now this has kind of put us in an interesting predicament, because over the kind of medium term, 6-7 months, Uniswap has been kind of following a positive trend, a trend to the upside. Since November time, late October, we've been putting in higher lows, and we can see that we've been riding this bull market support band all the way up until we reached our highs of about $14. And again, when we got rejected, we broke back down the bull market support band, and our bull market support band inverted. The 20-week SMA, which is the red line, went to the upside, and I'll talk about why that's significant in a moment. But this also meant that we put in a more short-term downward trend. So while we were getting higher lows, we were also getting lower highs, which means these lines do ultimately converge and often results in some kind of very strong movement, either leading up to this convergence or more or less on it. And I think it might not break down to the downside, but I think we will come back down lower before we break above. And the reason I say that is, again, going back to this 20-week SMA, and for those that are unsure, SMA means simple moving average, so it just measures the last 20 weeks of price action and divides it by 20. We see that the 20-week SMA is usually only above the 21-week EMA, which is the green line, and 21-week EMA basically measures the same thing as the SMA, but it gives more importance to the more recent weeks. So, for example, if we're measuring the 21-week EMA from this week, the current week, 5 weeks back would have less of a significance compared to the week before. So the sooner you are to the date of recording, the more important the week is. But anyway, we can see that the 20-week SMA is above here. And if we kind of look back at times when the 20-week has been above the 21-week, we can see it's usually been pretty bad. Here we were trending down, or at least we were flatlining at best when the 20-week took over. Going further back, we can see the 20-week took over here. We were going down. Looking again, the 20-week going down. Again, start of the bull run, the 20-week was above, we moved down, and here when we had our first kind of crash after the bull run, you guessed it, the 20-week going down. So at best we can see the 20-week flat lines, but ultimately it usually always ends up being at a lower price than where we entered. So yep, something to note, the 20-week is now on the top side. Another thing I kind of like to measure when we're coming up to these powder keg type moves, again these crosses that are converging, is I like to measure the volume of the good weeks and the bad weeks and find the average movement that we get for the week. So if we go from this first week here where we got a bit of green action to this final week here where we put in our highs, where we wicked above the first Fib level, we can see that took place over 5 weeks and we had a volume of about $9 million, which is pretty good. Shows it's pretty bullish. Now if we take these 4 weeks and we go volume to volume here, we had about 1 million over these 2 weeks, and then we had about 2 million over these 2 weeks. So say together they're 4 million. We see that here per bar it took us $2 million per week to move to this high, and then here per bar it took us $1 million to move from this high back down to this low. Now make of that what you will, but to me, or at least, well, what it actually is saying is that it took a lot less selling pressure to move back down to this low than it did buying pressure to move up to this low. So that to me suggests that the market is more ready to move to the downside than it is to the upside. And I think that will probably, again, we'll see something similar to this over the next few weeks. I think we'll probably come back down to this low. If we do break below this trend, our kind of next support is at $7, and we'll probably cross below this trend at about $8 somewhere. I'm not quite sure if we're going to, but the next support would be about $7, and then after that it would be about $6. So more or less $1 down each time. So there are definitely a few trades that could be made there potentially. Just if you are going to trade, always set a stop loss, I beg. But otherwise, if we do break to the upside, if we do come back down to this support band and maybe break above, the next resistance will be the first fib, I would argue. Because again, this will be a kind of charged movement. We've come to a crossroads. These kind of convergences are always strong moves. So if we break to the upside, the next stop, I think, will be this $14.50 level. And then after that, probably somewhere in between, we could argue this level here that we broke down from, $18. And then above that, we're at the $21. But I don't think we'll be rocketing up above that in the space of weeks. Now we could get price action like this again, where we go from, lows of $6 up to highs of $18, $17. That'll be great. But for me, I'm just not too sure it will happen. Either way, it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Looking at the Bitcoin chart, we can see that again, like most altcoins, to be honest with you, Uniswap has just gone down over this bear market, and that's quite normal to see. What is kind of more interesting to me is that we've seen Uniswap almost mirror image itself, but just it's been sped up on this side of the mirror. So if we draw a mirror from kind of November of 2022, we can see that Uniswap comes down to this low a few months before, and then it comes back down to this low a few months afterwards. These white lines here representing this low, and notice that we kind of touch this line twice, but that's a bit flimsy, one here, and here we kind of come back down to it again, one here and one here. And then we move down to this low of about 1,200 Satoshis for a UNI, and funnily enough, you'll see that we also came back down to this level early on with Uniswap, and we visited it twice, twice, moved to the upside, twice, moved to the upside. It was a low that was kind of shortly visited on both ways, giving kind of a U or a W shape. We kind of got that here as well. But, we ultimately came back down lower again to this first low that Uniswap kind of put in. Its launch price, more or less. And you can see, obviously, we only came down to this once. Here, so far, we've only come down to this once. Now, to me, this kind of, again, you'll hate to hear it, but it can go both ways. We can either move back down and break below this level, which is at about 1,000 Satoshis, just below 1,000 Satoshis. I don't think we will. I think we are coming to the kind of time where altcoins are going to start at least holding up against Bitcoin. We're going to see at least sideways movement, in my opinion, over the next few months, maybe a few more weeks of downward, but I don't think we're going to be putting in any sort of cycle lows, at least, for the majority of altcoins. But of course, nothing's impossible. So for me, what I would probably see is we spend a few more weeks down in this sort of green zone, which ranges from 1,500 Satoshis to about 1,100 Satoshis. Spend a bit of time in here, and then ultimately we might start trending upwards again. We can see, however, that Uniswap kind of, in the past at least, has moved up extremely quickly against Bitcoin. So this would kind of be calling for an altcoin season. If you think that's on the table for 2024, the year that we're currently in, that's fair enough. I would be more inclined to believe that that's coming later on. So we might just see kind of sideways movement, small upward movements, small downward movements against Bitcoin. Again, at the moment, fun fact, the total crypto space is technically undervalued at the moment. Not by much, but it's technically just undervalued. So we could see a bit of a move to the upside, bring us to an accurate valuation, which I say with air quotes, but ultimately I kind of think we're going to move back to the downside over the crypto space in general. And I still think, while now wouldn't be the worst time to move money from BTC into alts, you can probably still time it better. But again, that's totally up to your risk. If you just want to hold altcoins from now on, you'll probably do well, realistically. But again, totally up to you. that's kind of all I want to say for this video. So if you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Please check out the Twitter and the Reddit. I will be posting memes and video updates in both. And if you also want to just chat or anything like that, I will pop in and out. So yeah, thanks so much guys for watching. Take care and peace.